So you want to create a first-person retro-style character inside Blender based on your references. Reference images of yourself, a friend, your cat, so on. In this video I'm going to explain step per step how to do that. And maybe there's a lot of stuff you already know, maybe there's stuff you have never heard of. And the thing is, approaching a third-person character, so full-body person model, is a bit different to a retro FPS setup. There are a lot of games out there, especially retro FPS shooter from the 90s that only used sprites, so flat pixelated images of the hands and arms and the weapons, and a lot of games that only show the weapon. And GoldenEye, Quake and Medal of Honor, for example, they used full-on meshes for the arms and hands. So, and we will go in a direction like that. We will go in a GoldenEye Medal of Honor direction with this tutorial. So, and first step, we will talk about the right reference images for this project. So, the easiest way to get reference images for your character is just to straight up take pictures of a friend or yourself with a timer in your phone or the webcam. I really did just straight up made pictures. Didn't try to make them look pretty or something. I just drew over my face because nobody needs to see that. And well, so I made pictures of just the hand and the full-on arm from every angle. So let's talk about the hand first. So from the side view, the bottom view, and the top view, and always with the spread out pointer, because like I said, we will model a trigger finger for, you know, holding and firing a gun and stuff. And to this hand, we have also reference images of the full arm for, you know, proportion and shape reference. Also exactly the same, top view, bottom view, side view. And because I wasn't quite sure about the look of the sleeved arm, I also took pictures of a more, you know, you will see the hand very close up in a first-person game. The visual dimension of your hand, just a blank, fleshy, white skin hand will look kind of boring. And an interesting glove, for example, will differentiate your gameplay and your character setup from other games and game projects. So that's why I made another bunch of reference images here from my hand with a glove, with a leather glove, also side view, bottom view, and top view, also with the spread out pointer. And here we have the full arm. And because I don't have sleeves in this image, we see a bit of anatomy. So we have here the dip of the biceps, and here we have the edge of the bone. So modeling wise, the sleeved arm is easier because it's basically just a tube with a slight dip. And for the arm, we have to keep in mind a bit of anatomy, so shoulder wise and biceps. But yeah, later on that. So on this part, you really have to decide. I would recommend you just to wear a jacket, use gloves or stuff like that, or search for references online. However you wanna present your character, that's totally up to you. That's designing, and yeah, also interesting colors like colors that pop out of the screen for the gloves or something, or nail polish or something, that will make already the gameplay of your project way more interesting. So I will go on this tutorial with this situation, the t-shirt arm leather glove combo. It looks a bit more interesting to me than this. So let's set up our reference images. Okay, we are here inside an empty default scene inside Blender. First up, let's give it a save. So I'm in here a folder, and I have here a folder with the references inside that folder and already a folder for textures. So just click here, smash the little create new folder, and you get the folder. So let's call it Retro FPS Arms. Okay, nice. So for now, let's delete the default cube. Just select it and hit delete. By the way, here in the corner you will see what I'm pressing in this tutorial. So let's create a new collection. And let's call it ARM to not get confused. And the first collection, let's call it Base. And for now, drag across the light and the camera and hit H to hide. To bring it back, just hit Alt H. So now we have a clean view onto our viewport. The total front view is here -Y. And this is the total front view. Okay. So select the base collection and hit Shift A and empty and image. Now here under object data properties, open. Now go inside your reference folder and we will start with just the arm. I have here also reference images with spread out fingers. That would be for, if you wanna model all the fingers, but that's actually something you can change later on anyway. So let's pull this one up here. Let's drag this out on this little arrow. Item. And let's rotate the image upwards on the x-axis 90 degrees. Let's zoom in a bit. And scale it up. I don't know, let's put it somewhere here. Or for example, I like to work on the other side. So let's just turn it by 180 and select it and hit G to drag around. And I think I want the shoulders to be up here or something. Okay. Now select the reference image and on the y-axis, drag it back. You can move it up here on location, or you go here inside the move tool and you just drag it back. We want to have some kind of distance to the center of our map. So, okay. Let's check the sizing of our arm. For that, I mean, I have down here the feet and here the head. You can change it always afterwards if you want. But let's check it with the default cube. the default cube is 2 meters tall. So a total person would fit in the cube. So the reference is a bit too big. Scale it a bit down. So from feet to top of head would be something like that. Now we can delete the default cube again. And so also what's I would recommend you to go with real life measurements. We have also here the measurement tool, and you can just drag across and measure the length of your arm or something. And yeah, because if we now keep the scale in mind, we don't have to change everything or mess around afterwards inside the game engine. But I mean, it's possible. It's not that bad if the scaling is weird right now. So, and I think we can also create the reference for just the hand. I think this is reference enough for the total arm, and the reference for the hand will be a separated one. So let's select our reference, Shift D, left click and drag it a bit forward, and down here under object data properties, open image, and let's take also the top view. So now let's try to line up the reference images. Okay, I think we have to mirror it. And R, and rotate. Opacity, let's turn it a bit down. And I like to create slightly bigger hands. And because we have separated limbs, so hand and arm, we can change the scale every time. I mean, we have always the opportunity to change the scale. So, okay, let's bring the opacity back. And let's keep everything organized. Let's call this ref hand and ref arm. And for now, let's hide the hand. So let's Control S to save the whole project, because already we created a pretty nice setup with our references. So let's click inside the arm folder and Shift A, cube, and scale it down to something around the height of the shoulder. Let's hit Tab to switch into the edit mode, and hit A to select everything, and hit G to drag it to the position of the shoulder. And when we now switch back to the object mode, the pivot point is still here in the center. This allows us to mirror the cube one-to-one perfectly. If your cube, if the pivot point didn't stay in the middle, so something like that, and you dragged it here, and the pivot point is in the middle, just right click, set origins to origin 3D cursor. 2D. Now it will jump back. So, and now let's apply the mirror modifier. So here under modifier properties, add modifier and mirror. Pretty easy so far. So let's hit tab, switch back into the edit mode. And let's take the rotate tool or hit R on your keyboard and rotate. And if we now hold, while being in the rotate mode, the control, you will snap to the grid. So this is flexible, but holding control while doing this will snap to the grid. So I rotated, I think 45 degrees, something like that. Okay. And we will start with the shoulder and work our way down to the wrist of the arm. To get a pointy, more globe-like top of the shoulder, we can do two things. We can, for example, here use the knife tool and left click and enter and cut through it, something like that. And then while being here in the vertice selection, just drag the point out. And yeah, here we have vertice selection, edge selection, you only select the edges, and here is face selection. And a bit, I don't know, a quicker move than this would be to select and let's hit M and center. Now we have this little pyramid. And if we now drag, select across the bottom, we won't select the point, the vertice point behind it. So we have to toggle here X-ray, toggle X-ray. That way we can toggle through objects all the way through. So let's do that. Let's bring it up. And let's hit E to extrude. Perfect. So let's select everything and let's hit R to rotate and S to scale down. Let's try to find a nice point where the shoulder is coming into the torso, something like this. Let's drag select all of the points, and to add something to our selection, shift left drag. Yeah. So here our base. Let's just straight up drag those points here to the wrist. Hit S to scale down. And shove the wrist, put the wrist inside the glove. Yeah, like that. And we have those tubes. And now we can define those tubes with more geometry. So cut, loop cut. Let's start in the middle, where the biceps is located here. Here's this little dip. And if you have a jacket, this point is maybe a bit, it's not that easy to find, but basically just work with your eyesight. Where's the middle of the arm? And yeah, let's place one loop slightly. Here's the middle. slightly above and underneath. Okay. And now you see here the silhouette of the arm, and basically you now take just the points and drag them to the right position. Like that. Drag select. Now we can check again by rotating around it. So let's zoom in again. Oh, by the way, if you're lost, you can select everything or just the point and hit period on the numpad, and you will zoom in and focus the selected thing, and it will be the new center of your scene. It's very handy to navigate around and to model. So I think we should also insert another edge loop up here, just for aesthetic reasons. And to give the shoulder more roundness. And more volume, so. Something like that. Maybe drag it a bit closer. And as you can see here, the arm is coming a bit out, so let's do the two. Let's imagine this section here a bit, and here also to buff up the silhouette. And bring this a bit more inwards, like that. So up front, it's currently looking like that. Looks pretty arm-like to me. And maybe those points a bit. Okay. So let's switch to the side view. This still looks like a tube, and we want it to look more like an arm. So to do that, now let's work with the straight here on the gizmo, straight up the X, not the -X, the X. Let's buff up the arm a bit here. And let's bring this point a bit more inwards. And this point a bit more outwards and up. So now it looks a bit more arm-like. Something like that. And to make it even more arm-like, we can drag select this middle point here. And let's just here find a spot where we can look straight at it. Something like that, it doesn't matter. And hit R and rotate it forward. Let's bring this a bit more in, this a bit more out. And this part here, the wrist forward. So now it's way more organic looking, way more arm-like. Perfect. So, I mean, you can still play around here with the positioning. and stuff. Something like more up here or something. It's totally up to you. And yeah, you get very fast, very lost in the process. And I would recommend you to just take your time, and you can always add more geometry, but I think that's the basic geometry, the necessary geometry. We can also do the same special move we did here with the elbow. Drag select the shoulder and rotate it a bit inwards like that to give it a more organic looking shape. Yeah, and like I said, you can always tweak around, but let's go with that for now. So, time to attack the hand itself. So let's go back into the edit mode, and for now we can name those cubes arm, and we can hide the, because we already synced up the scale of the hand texture, the hand reference, we can now hide the arm. And we can don't change the scale because we matched it up with the rest of the arm. We can bring it more to the middle. So here on location, 0, 0, 0. And for the rotation, let's try to, I don't know, let's sit the arm to a position like that. Okay, nice. So we can hide the arms here on the hide, or we just click it and press H. And now we can continue and attack the hand itself. And well, like I said, you can do individual fingers, but for this retro golden eye vibe, it's totally enough to have the trigger finger. But I mean, that's up to you. I will explain this way of doing it. So let's also, no, I think we can, let's work with only this reference. Let's drag it back and let's insert a new cube. Select the collection arm, mesh cube, scale it all the way down until it matches the silhouette. Something like that. And now let's select the cube and make sure to have the X-ray still toggled. Drag select across the top. And I mean, let's start with the bottom. And now again, we will trace out the arm very, very roughly, and later on we will go more into the details. Let's hit E to extrude to here to align under the knuckles. And let's hit, oh, yeah, let's try it like that for now. Oh, you know what? Let's take the edge loop cut, and I think you already see it coming. We try to line up here. So loop cut here. Let's switch back to the move tool. We are still inside the vertex selection. Let's drag those points up. To their endpoints. For now, we will only attack the fingers above. Like that. Let's extrude the first finger, the pointer. Like that, very roughly. Make sure to only select the needed vertices. Again, E to extrude like that. Bring this one a bit more inwards. Okay, I know the small finger is a bit smaller, but let's work with that right now. So the thickness, we can already change that. Let's go to the x-axis. Let's try to find a nice middle ground. Something like, or let's hit A, select everything, switch into the scale tool, and only scale on the green on the y-axis. Something like this. This makes sense for the thickness. So let's try to narrow down the silhouette a bit better. Okay. So far so good. And for the thumb. So we have two ways to approach this. We can extrude the plane. If we switch here into face selection, we can untoggle the X-ray to see better the faces, or we work with the X-ray. Then we have to be careful to not select something on the other side. So we can basically just extrude here the face. That would be the easy way, but I think it's not very aesthetic if you ask me. I think personally it makes more sense to separate the thumb also. So let's select this face here and let's only duplicate this face. So Shift D and drag it a bit forward, left click. Now we have only this here. Let's untoggle the X-ray vision for now. And let's scale it down to the thickness of the thumb. Make sure to have everything. Okay. Okay, so now select everything or select the whole face with face selection. Let's hit E to extrude. Just like that. Let's scale it down a bit. Like that. And let's switch back into the X-ray. Drag select those vertices, drag select those vertices. Be careful here on this edge. Let's drag those just straight up in. And so let's attack the front view first. Again, basically, we just have to align and let's hit E again. Oh, if I scale down here, it gets the finger gets smaller and smaller. So So let's just take the vertex and shove it to the right direction, like that. Here. And we have clearly here again. Oh, let's just drag it out. Just like that. Yeah, let's do it like this for now. So now let's just select the finger. For that, select one vertex and hit the L button to select only the separated. This allows you to only separate closed meshes. So if you work with a lot of different separated meshes, you can select them via this feature. So, okay. Let's bring it a bit forward and R to rotate. Like this. We get the more organic looking situation with the thumb. Now we can again rotate a bit around it. And wait, let's switch into the object mode. Let's drag the reference a bit more backwards. Tap to switch back into the object select the hand and tap. So, and it looks very flat right now. We can bring in even more shaping to the hand. For that, let's select those middle points like that. Let's drag them out. So we have here, wait, untoggle the X-ray vision. So it gets here a bit more inwards. We can center this point a bit. And here also, let's center it. And those points here. Let's hit, oh, let's do that later. So we can try to make the bottom part a bit more rounded. So we get a more glove-like silhouette. And okay, for shaping wise, I think we should now attack the fingers. Let's untoggle toggle the X-ray vision again. Yeah, we have to ignore this part. I know it's not lining up with the reference, but later on that. For now, you know what? Let's left click on the vertex L and hit H. Let's hide the thumb for now. You can always bring it back with Alt H. But for now, let's hide it and let's focus just on the knuckles here. So for animating and for movement, we need to bring in more geometry. And basically, a lot of games back then did joint geometry on fingers and joint parts and for articulation. And but to avoid stretching, you can disconnect them and again create separated body parts. But we won't do that. I think personally it looks better that way. So we have one major breaking point for the geometry, and it's here on the knuckles. So loop cut and bring it all the way up like that, just like we did with the elbow. Now we can bring those points a bit more upwards. Yeah. And if you're looking at your own hand, you have one small joint here and one big finger bone knuckle joint here. So the thing is separated in 3 parts. So we have to bring in those edge loops. And I know it's again breaking the reference, but let's select them and drag them a bit out like that. And here in the reference, if you photograph your own fingers, it's easier to see where the joints of your fingers are, but here it's a bit more difficult. But it's clearly around here. So let's bring in here the joint, and here on top, and here on top. So that way we can bend our fingers. And if you want to avoid stretching and stuff, you can simply bring in another edge loop. Like that. But I mean, in theory, you can do that anyway afterwards. So let's for now ignore it. So now we can attack again a bit the reshaping of the hand. We can bring here a bit, can get a more rounded shape. And now let's untoggle the X-ray vision, select those parts and hit S and scale down. And bring them back. Just like that. Now let's take those parts. Bring them from the other side. So those points here. Shift left click and bring them forward. Down. Like that. That's looking even more organically. Let's hit Alt H to bring back the thumb. And I think for a glove or for a hand, it should be exactly the same situation. So let's adjust our situation with the thumb here. Let's bring back the X-ray vision. Take the top, extrude it a bit more. And here, let's bring that one a bit more in. Also here. And I think for the thumb, you should maybe rotate a bit more around the hand to get a better understanding of the current situation. And basically the fingernail is here on top, and here it's, for the thumb, it's here on this side, on the outer side. On the outside. Okay. Let's bring the bottom part more forward. And those in between points, let's bring them even more down. Just like that. And like I said, this should be one-to-one the same situation for your hand. And now again, you can revisit the parts and play around and adjust even more the placing. And yeah, that's again up to you. I will bring it a bit more down. Also here. And also this part. So, I think it looks pretty nice. Maybe the thumb is a bit too thick. Let's hide the main hand. L, H. And so like I said, here is the fingernail. So here's the fingernail. So the inside, we want to scale down the inside a bit. Like that. So let's Alt H, bring everything back. And I think we're done. I mean, we can still add more geometry and add more edge loops, but this is really the bare minimum. And yeah, like I said, normally on a third-person character, you would have a flipper hand. So imagine this part. So the pointer is not here. We have just the flipper hand and the thumb. And yeah, let's roll with that. Let's name our hand here, cube, and call it hand. So let's bring back our arm. Take the hand. You can hide the reference. Take the hand. And let's just use the move tool or G. Drag it to the end point of the sleeve. Let's rotate it in place. Just like that. From the side view. And we want to rotate it locally. So let's change here global to local. Now the gizmo is based on the rotation of the mesh itself. Let's rotate on the blue one. Like this. To get the nice default pose. Change back. So I think I wanna G, drag it a bit more back. Like that. Yeah, nice. Nice. And let's watch the whole thing here on the material preview. Yeah, that works. Maybe hit selected and tab. Maybe let's bring this part here a bit more outwards. It looks very glove-like. Untoggle the X-ray. You don't have to watch. It's not necessary to watch inside. Just drag the points a bit more out. Okay. Let's roll with this. And yeah, and for now, I think now we reached a pretty nice point to make a backup. So let's take our collection, select, left click, right click, duplicate collection, and double click, and let's call it back up. And uncheck the check mark here. So we have this hidden folder of our current situation. And now we can just, I think it's maybe a bit forward like that, very slightly. Now just drag select across the whole arm, and or you can also do the same thing here, left click and control left click, and everything that's the current mesh that's framed with this square, and this will be combined, so inwards. And currently we have on the arm here our mirror modifier and not on the hand. So if we copy inside the arm, the mirror modifier will also apply onto the hand. So let's hit Control J. And as you can see, we mirrored our hand, and we joined both separated parts. And we have the base, we modeled the base setup of our arm. Let's bring back the reference. And we are very close to that. I know the scale, like I said, the scale is a bit off, but photos can very often display scale a bit different based on focal length and stuff. So it's a difficult topic, the scale. So, but I extended, as you can see, I extended the tips of the fingers a bit, but it's still, it looks right. If it looks right, and do your controls from all the angles, if it looks right, it's maybe right. And yeah, now let's head to UV unwrapping. And because we have a mirrored situation, we can for now, here on the modifier tab, display viewport, we can untoggle that. So the other side is not visible. We only need to attack one side. So let's select our arm, and here under material properties, click and hit new material. Let's call it FPS Arm FPS Arm, why not? And down here we have currently the principal BSDF, base color, and let's hit that and select image texture. And now hit new. So, and basically I'm aiming for a nice retro middle ground with the texture size. You can go lower or higher than that, that's up to you. I will go with 256 by 256. Lower than that or higher than that, however you like. I like the... you have to keep in mind, you will see the arms very close up to the player character in a first-person character, on a first-person character, and the amount of pixelation is still in a nice balance with the details of the texture. So yeah. And if it's too much and we want more pixelation and stuff, we can still go by half of this with 128. And yeah, so scaling up is difficult, but scaling down is not difficult. And yeah, let's just roll with that and name. Arm. And let's type in the pixelation 256p, and let's hit OK. Noise, and change linear to closest, so we are able to see what's going on with the pixelation and stuff, or otherwise it would be blurred. So now let's switch in the other tab, in the UV editing tab. Here we will be able to mark the seams and UV unwrap the whole situation. So let's hit A and period in the numpad to focus on the arm. Nice. And here we have our texture, but the thing is currently our texture is not saved. So let's hit image, save as, and save it in your folder or something, like here. I won't need the transparency of the PNGs, or I need no alpha channel. I go with RGB and save as image. So for UV unwrapping, I would recommend you to attack the individual parts. So just start with the arm and work your way down. So let's hide the hand for now. Select vertex, hit L, and here also hover over vertex and hit L. And now just hit H to hide it. Now we have just the arm. Now to the seams. Basically you have to think about it like the glove here, or like your clothes. It's the same with textiles. You need seams and to line up flat pieces and put them together. So you have to place cuts and stuff. So I would, in this case, some people like to cut tubes open and roll them out. But in this situation, I like to just have two parts, the front and the back of the arm. And yeah, let's roll with that. So shift left click around the seams, right click and mark seam, just like that. For down here, let's place a cut with the knife. Like that, and also mark it as a seam. So let's hit A, and up here under UV, unwrap. As you can see, we unwrapped the front and the side view, and let's leave it like that for now. And let's attack the head. So Alt H, and now let's hide the arm. So hover over edge in this case, because we're in the edge selection, hit L and just hit H. So let's attack the hand. Hands are a big mystery for me, and I hate to UV unwrap hands because I'm never satisfied by the outcome, to be honest. And yeah, sometimes I just roll with smart. This is the system itself will UV unwrap the hand, and I will island merge in something like 20 or 30. And this will just spread it straight up out. What the system thinks is the best case scenario for your situation. And this looks very promising to me. So let's roll with this situation. Drag select and let's hit G. But sometimes this can look very messed up. And for example, for the arm, for the top arm, this is way too much individual islands, in my opinion. So if you're trying to texture paint just like in Photoshop or something, just on the image file, this will be a bit confusing. And so it's easier to, if you have nicely marked seams and stuff, it's easier to draw directly onto the texture, but this is fine too. So yeah, and I think the main parts are the most important ones. So here, so I used, like I said, I marked everything, UV unwrapping. Yeah, and I think we just went through all of them. Yeah. So let's bring back the arm, Alt H, and hit A to select everything, just like that. Now we have to arrange all those UVs on our texture. And yeah, and we will try to just use all of the texture space. But for now, the texture will not line up perfectly. So we have here the endpoint and here an endpoint. So we want them to line up. So let's drag it a bit out. And this one and this one. This one, we want them to line up. So let's hit right click and auto align. This point, auto align. Same for those outer points, auto align. So that way we have a nice transition from one edge to the next edge. Just like here, auto align, auto align, auto align, auto align, just like that. So the aspect ratio is not too far off. So something like this will cause huge distortions in our texture. And yeah, that's why I'm using the pixel grid, for example. So let's switch back into the island selection. And I think this is a pretty nice size for the arms. But to use more of the texture space or more cleverly, we can rotate it by 180, which was displayed here up here. So we can bring them a bit closer, or what's also possible is let's just drag it to the other edge like this and use the middle space for the rest of the UVs. So, but this can also be beneficial if you're painting directly onto the PNG file. Yeah, that's like in Genome's puzzle, basically. So, yeah, let's try this situation. And now let's drag select across the whole hand UVs. And basically, we have to scale it down, I think, by half of its size. So let's drag select all of it, hit S and period 5. Now we divide it through half of its size. I think that's good enough to place it nicely in the middle. So let's do that. Let's start here with the main parts. Rotate. Just like that. Drag select. And yeah, there's still more space, I think. Wait, let's bring it a bit, bring it again out. Scale it a bit up. This looks nice. Yeah, and for retro textures, there's still the topic of lining up your UVs to get the to get nice. Yeah. So basically, you just have to fiddle around with that and to find the right spots for your UVs. Shit. And you can always, you know, mirror it. Ah, shit, I'm always pressing the hide button. So nice. So, and I think we used a lot of the texture space, and now we can spread them a bit more out. Just a bit to get a bit of distance between the parts. Yeah, just like that. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, let's give this a save. Hit save. And let's continue to the next step, the texture paint tab. So, and again, hit A and period on the numpad. Oh, we are already in the texture mode. So we have to zoom in and switch into the object mode and hit 0 period on the numpad and switch back here to the texture paint mode. And here we have this little square. This will be very helpful while texturing. So if we switch back to the UV editing and we, for example, select here just the hand and we can either hide it or just select it, but let's select it for now just, and let's hit texture paint. And if we toggle the paint mask, we will only be able to paint what we marked on the UV editing tab. So, and if we want to invite our selection, we just have to Control I, and it will select everything that's not selected. So, and let's hide this, for example, and hit A to select everything. If we now switch back into texture painting, we got rid of the arm. And if we untoggle it, we have everything. And here we have the paint mask. We can only paint the arm. Pretty nice, if you ask me. So, but to texture paint, we should start with a base color. So let's get everything back, Alt H, and select everything for now. Also, everything that's selected gets displayed here as this grid. And actually, you can also download this UV map if you want to paint your stuff inside a painting program. Oh yeah, here. So in the UV editing tab, UV and export UV layout. So now we have here arm, UV arm. Here again, we have the size and the opacity of the grid. Let's go with something lower than that, like 0.10. Export. And if we now check our folder, we have here the UV layout. And basically we can take this file and head straight into Photoshop or Krita or some other painting software and just paint on that, or you have a software on your iPad or phone or something. Yeah, you can paint on that. But as you can see, those individual parts are way more confusing than here with the arm, for example. Those main parts, we manually cut it into those sections. So that's also an option, but for now, let's get rid of it. And yeah, texture paint, and let's find our base color. So for that, let's take the fill tool. The draw tool is just, you know, drawing here, for example. But let's find our base color. I would recommend you to here. Let's take the reference image and color pick and try to find a middle color tone. A bit brighter than this. Here you can adjust the brightness here, the color tone. Perfect. Something like this. This brownish. Yeah, something like this. Now let's switch back into the FPS Arm, our texture. Using the fill tool. Oh shit. But we can just paint. I like to paint a corner. If I'm picking colors, I'm just painting them in strokes onto the texture to find them again, to color pick them again if I have to use them. So here the fill tool, pick the color picker. Here's our skin color, and let's click on the mesh. And now we fill out only those parts with our main color, which is the base color of our skin tone in this case. And now we can, for example, paint on highlights and shadows, or we can straight up stencil down our reference images next to that. But for now, let's give this situation a save image, just save or save as if you want a second file, or you want to make sure. Let's make sure. Yeah, we want to overwrite this file, save image. Let's take a look in our folder. So with our base color, we head into material properties. And I would recommend you to decrease the specular and increase the roughness. And also what we could do inside the object mode. So if we switch here or with the tab object mode, right click and shade smooth. We smooth down our model. Sometimes this is helpful for painting. And for example, if I'm painting here in the angle, I can paint along the shadow. So if I'm here, taking a darker version of the same color, something like this, I can paint along or something if I want, but yeah. That's for color painting. We will go with stencil technique. We will take our reference and straight up throw it onto our arm. Okay. Okay, so we filled our character with the base color. Now we will create a stencil based on our reference images for our arm. So to do that, choose draw here. And for color, let's go with pure white. So H down, S down, and V all the way up to have a neutral base for the stencil. Now here, let's go to texture properties, hit new, and open. And let's choose the right reference. Let's use this one here. And up here, active tool and workspace settings. Scroll down to texture and switch tile to stencil. Now, when we hover here, we can see the image as a stencil. And you can, if you hold right, you can pan around. With control right, you can rotate. And with shift right, you can zoom. And for example, it's here mirrored. So if I want to mirror it on the other side, I have here, up here, the X. I want to mirror it on the X-axis. So I have to put in here -1 instead of 1. Enter. Now it's mirrored. So image aspect and reset transform. Reset transform to switch back. And image aspect to now the stencil has the same aspect like the reference image. Perfect. Basically, we can now take this here, and based on those values, the radius and the strength and the base color, you can just paint it onto your 3D onto your model. But for that, I think we should hide the hand. UV editing and hover over your glove or hand. L, L, H, A to mark only the arm, and texture paint. And make sure to toggle the paint mask. Now we have only the arm. So let's try to line up with the reference image and make it a bit larger. So let's start up here. Let's paint down. Looks pretty fine. Now for the back side. We should maybe use a different stencil image. So let's go back in here, texture properties, open. Let's look for an image, a different image. I think I will go with this one. And I again have to mirror it. And I mean, you can straight up stick with the stenciled on version of your character, or you can modify it and paint over it. So I like to use the stencils as guidance, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So far so good. Yeah, and if we switch here into material preview mode, we see straight up how it will end up like. This is a good base, but as you can see, we clearly need to fix some parts. But so far so good. And yeah, I would say let's paint on the glove first before we dive into fixing and overpainting stuff. So let's hit Alt H to bring the glove back and mark the arm, and H now A, and texture paint. Make sure that you're inside the paint mask. And let's switch here in the texture properties again, but to only the glove. To nice top view, like this one. Now we have to adjust again the image aspect and the rotation, like that. And let's find a nice perspective. Something like that. Yeah, let's just roughly paint over it. And now we can line it up a bit more. Like that. The same for the finger. Here the thumb. And midway through we should save it. Give it a save. Looks pretty great so far. Maybe we have to go back and isolate the... Yeah, I think we have to attack the thumb individually. So let's hide the thumb. Select the thumb with L and H. Let's only work with the middle part. Oh, A to select everything. So let's change the image again. Just paint over it. Let's attack the finger. Nice. Image save. Now the side view. For that, I think I will go with the same reference image. And let's hide this reference. Maybe let's select only those parts. Alt and left click will select all around. So for here example, Alt left click, you will select, and if you select again, Alt left click, it will select the other loop. So let's select this one here. Texture paint. Now let's just cover it in leather for now. Same for this spot here. I think we can use this spot here. Now let's try to line up the ending of the glove. If you're just painting on a hand, it should be way easier because you just have the flesh tone. Yeah, it lines up pretty nice. This one side. Oh, nice. Let's give it a save. Image, save. And let's select the whole glove. Here's still a little spot. Let's attack the thumb. So Alt H to bring everything back and just select the thumb and Control I to invert the selection, hit H to hide, and now A to select everything. And texture paint. Where's the top view? Here. Basically for now we just try to cover the whole thing in leather texture. Like that. So we get all those wrinkles in. Just rotate around and doesn't have to be perfect. It only needs to be covered. Like that. Image save, and now for now let's get rid of our texture. Here, press X, and here under active tool and workspace settings, texture, and switch back to tiled. Now UV editing and Alt H to bring everything back, and now untoggle the paint mask. This is our current situation. Already looks really presentable in my opinion. Now with the painting tool we can blend the texture a bit more into each other to make it more believable, but the glove turned out pretty nice. Yeah, nice. We could also make a backup of our texture. That way we won't mess anything up. And arm texture, let's go into the folder. Let's just right click, copy, and that way we have a backup if we mess up the painting process. So, and I think let's start with the arm itself. UV editing, and again hover over it, L. Let's invert H and A to select everything. Paint texture, paint mask. And let's work on this situation here. I think we need a smaller radius, something like 20. And let's use the soften tool. That way we can line up this transition here. Oh, smear tool. Let's line up this situation. More evenly. And let's blend it. A very bright spot. And there's a lot of noise from my picture, but it's not that bad. We can fix that later. Smear and blend. You can take a lot of time texture painting. This is there's a reason why in the industry there is a team for that stuff. So take your time. Just gonna blend it a bit. Over the edges. So it looks more unified. Also zoom a bit back. Okay, in my opinion, it's a pretty dirty paint job, but this could take hours and just to paint the paint texture. So I think we are pretty good to go in our situation. And yeah, so now to bring back a bit more of depth, we take the draw tool and let's select our brown here and let's make it darker like that. We have here the stroke, stabilize stroke, zoom in a bit and let's make something like 20 again. That's maybe a bit too harsh. Let's try to pick up the same brown. Slightly darker. And we will create a little shadow area. Okay. Pretty good. Now we can zoom in a bit and we can blend the transition. Again, to unify. And we're basically working with the pixelation. It really is helping us out. And if we want to fix here this ugly edge, we can just shove it back in. Like that. Okay. And I want a bit more wrinkles. So again, we have here our shadow color. So we took the brown and made it a bit darker of the cloth to get our shadow color. And let's make some wrinkles. Okay. Need it even darker. I like that, yeah. So let's turn off the stroke stabilization. And if you watch your t-shirt, for example, you can see exactly where the wrinkles are of your arm. So let's try to replicate it. We have here at the end of the t-shirt, we have here wrinkles, and we have here under the armpit, we have some wrinkles. So let's try to replicate that. Go on the back. Here and here. Basically just take a look at your own clothes and just roughly create the wrinkles. Like that. And here under the armpit is a darker spot. And it should be pretty tight on top, so no wrinkles there. It would look a bit weird. So, okay, here one wrinkle, one tiny one. No, that's too much. So we will now take here the smear tool. And we will, I mean, we could also work here, but I like to rotate around it. Let's take the base color and drag it in and drag those out to blend the folds of the fabric, so the shadow areas and stuff, into each other. And try to keep the same distance to your model. Don't switch around. Here also, let's draw out the tip. Thin out the tip of your fabric fold. And if you zoom out, you will see it makes totally sense. You have to be, I think this is a process, it can be you can very fast do too much, so better do less. And also one point is it's really something you have to get into to get an understanding of what's too much, what you should do more. But the reference image totally helps to give you a nice base. Here under the armpit, this is a big unnecessary spot because you will basically never see in a first person situation the armpit or the shoulder. It's very unlikely. Now it looks better this way. Okay. Looks pretty solid. So you see the blending and it's unifying the whole situation. And yeah, now we can take this soften tool and soften the shadows here underneath. And here the pointy areas. Further blend them into the fabric. To give them a more shadowy appeal. And I think I will go with that. Like I said, for texturing, back in the edit mode, we can check also the texture while smooth shading. So flat or just select it, right click, shade smooth, go back into it. Texture paint to further fade the transitions of the edges into each other. Nice, 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 nice. Give it a save. And let's attack the glove. So go back in the UV editing, Alt H, and Control I, H, A to only select the glove, texture painting, and because we have the paint mask, we can only attack our glove. And also we can fix stuff here. As you can see, we have here clear line. So let's go down with the radius. to get rid of that line while having the soft tool on, something like 5. The pixelation is very forgiving. Okay, looks great. Even though I took a really shitty picture, we redrew some tiny details and now it turned out great. So, but texture painting everything from scratch without the reference images, that can be a lot of work and need, and a lot of skills are necessary, in my opinion. That's something you really have to get into. I'm not so hard into texture painting. I tried it, but I failed a bit, in my opinion. So, and basically here the same, we try to blend the edges. So for that, maybe let's also select Shade Smooth. And we can clearly see here the edges. Maybe for the shadow parts, let's drag them across. Let's start like this. And here I think there's not a lot to paint over. The texture has so many details and looks already so interesting. We just try to preserve that. We will just try to preserve that and maybe make the transition a bit easier on the edges. So I'm really rushing here with the texture paint. It's really something you actually should take your time, because a rushed paint job can mess a lot of things up. So yeah, so much to that. But don't worry, at the end, I mean, in my opinion, everything can change inside the game engine or in your project. So with the lighting and, you know, the rendering and the movement with the animation, a lot of stuff can change. So, and I think the whole process is very forgiving, even with mistakes or stuff. It can look pretty awesome. Yeah, well, and we will just continue like that and blend and smear. And at the end we will paint a bit over certain parts. But I mean, you really have to decide. If you're working with a normal hand, you can just approach it like the arm. But here with the glove, I really want to use the texture of the glove from the reference image. So preservation or modification. You decide. But you see, I'm working here with mouse. I think to actually make a solid paint job with mouse, I would need a lot of time, and I'm already having a very hard time because the tutorial is taking so long. But I really want to show you all the details and all the steps. So, and yeah, I mean, you can use the timestamps. Let's drag those shadows to the top. Do the same here. So let's do some slight blending here. And yeah, we need here some shadow situation or something. But looks super awesome. Looks like a glove. Yeah, that's enough. I really overthink way too often and invest way too much time in details that end up not being as important or something. So yeah, I hope you have a better way of understanding your managing your time. So let's make here a little shadow spot. We will use the brown. You know what? Let's work with this beige. Zoom out. This makes more sense. Let's make it darker. And let's take just make a circle like that. Image save and editing A, select everything, go back. Now let's blend in the edges. The smear tool. Like that. Yeah, hell yeah. We are making a lot of progress in this tutorial. And yeah, take your time. And really, you know, keep in mind a budget for mistakes. Always. Even if you're a profi veteran or something, have a budget for mistakes. People who create masterpieces didn't expect the masterpiece. The masterpiece came while there have been in their element. Planning a masterpiece is not really a masterpiece in my opinion. So nice transition. Yeah, nice. Give it a save. And let's, I would say, let's redraw slightly some shadow areas. Going to draw, color pick the shadowy part here. Something it's more reddish. Okay, let's roll with that, but let's decrease the opacity. Zoom in. Like that. That we make the glove a bit more pop. Let's drag the line a bit more down. Like that. Also here, this line. And I think this rim, we should retrace the rim here. Without the stabilization, I think this can look quite interesting. Just like that. Quite alright. If you zoom back, it looks actually more high poly. So, okay, let's leave it like that. Why not? Let's leave it like that. Alt H, bring everything back. UV layout. Zoom a bit out. Nice. Material modifier properties, and let's bring back our mirror modifier. Hell yeah. Where's the reference? Here's the reference. This is very accurate. So before we attack the rigging, I wanna dive into something else. We're done with the texture. So here's my project file, references, texture, and the Blender file itself. And we have here still the backup. Yeah. I think we don't need it anymore. I'm pretty happy with the outcome. So delete it. And now this file, let's make a copy of this one. Copy and insert. And now we can, for example, try to adjust the to make the texture smaller. Maybe this amount of pixelation is not necessary, the 256 by 256. Maybe 128 is enough. So let's give it a try. Currently it's still high, so right click, edit, and inside paint we have here change size. For me it's in German. Pixel, and let's just change it. Okay, and let's give it a save. Now we have here a big version and a smaller version. So let's try the smaller version, because we blended the parts pretty nice, the transitions pretty nice into each other. There should not be a hard pixelation. It should be pretty smooth. But I'm curious about the details on the glove. So also, if you don't prefer this smooth look, you can always go back to shade flat and go with this flat shaded version. But I like the smooth version. It displays the texture a bit better. So let's change it. Select, and here, material properties, open image, and let's change the small version. And let's give it a look how it will end up. Nice! We have way more pixelation, but we still have the details of the glove. Pretty nice. Wait, let's hide the overlay here. Show overlays. We still have all the details, the shadows here, the glove. Maybe this line here is a bit off. And down here, but we can just smooth over very quickly. Let's take the soften tool and hide the glove. I think the glove is pretty perfect. Same for this side. Maybe here a bit. Nice. So let's bring everything back. Alt H. Let's give it a second look. Yeah, I think I will roll with this resolution. This is pretty good. I mean, here's... No, let's leave it like that. I like the amount of pixelation. It's pixelated enough, so it's high enough to display all the details, and it's low enough to give us a nice crisp pixelation here on the edges, for example. And yeah, that's a awesome sweet spot. What's also possible with the texture, for example, would be right click and double tap in the display mode. We could here under image editing, we could arrange the sharpness of the colors to bring out more of the details, to make it more pop, and the color, can bring them a bit up like that. It's a slight difference all inside of Windows, and let's just try it. I will just straight up save over it. Why not? So here we see the colors are a bit clearer and the details are a bit more sharp. And even though it's the smaller image, here it's a bit more, you know, like foggy. Let's re-import it. Nice. Now texture has some crisp pop to it. This will be my final texture. Nice. Those slight changes did a lot for our texture. Now it looks very professional, very nice. And without using any big software or something, so everything inside Blender and Windows. And I think we can now head to rigging. So let's give it a save. Also, let's bring back the overlays. We can get rid of the reference image. Select, Shift left, Shift D, left click. Now we have ARM 2 and drag drop it into the backup folder. Perfect. Save again. So now for our rigging situation, we need the human meta rig. If you don't have the human meta rig, so Shift A, amateur, and human meta rig. If you don't have that, you need to activate it here on the edit, preferences, and under rigify. You have to check this one here. And then it should pop up. So amateur, Shift A, amateur, and human meta rig, noise, and now let's just select it and bring it to the height of the shoulders, like that, a bit more down. And here under object data properties, viewport display in front. Okay. Now we have a lot of unnecessary bones here and we want to get rid of them. So select the armature and tab, go into edit mode. And now we can basically delete everything except the arms. And we need this spine bone. And of course we don't need a head because first person this would be just the camera. So I think it's maybe necessary to shove the arms a bit more inwards. So edit mode, slightly inwards, something like that. But the rest of the rig will be based on the model. So, oh, one thing left. In object mode, right click and set origins 3D cursor. So the origin is not down here or something. We need it up here. Okay. Now let's switch here into the solid mode. And select the meter rig and hit tab. And X-ray. Yeah, X-ray. And I think we should toggle the wireframe. So here, geometry, wireframe. And also up here, this little magnet snapping tool, we need that. Toggle it and volume. And volume to center. Perfect. So drag select. Also important, toggle here the X. That way it will mirror our adjustments. Now let's lay it here in the middle. Drag select somewhere like here. And yeah, let's use the move tool. Let's just adjust it from the front first. So I want the ball here, the start of the hand, to intersect with 1/3 with the arm. Not half, around 1/3. And yeah, and I think now we can start adjusting the fingers, but let's bring the shoulder a bit more in. More like here. Yeah, that makes sense. It will not make a lot of difference. So let's shove the hand here and the elbow. Let's bring the elbow a bit back, just right behind the middle line. Like that. Nice. So, and now let's delete some fingers. We only need the pointer, the middle finger and the thumb. And we can delete basically all the other fingers. Those are not necessary. And let's shift left click. And yeah, we're starting here and let's just, because we have the volume snapping active, it will throw it inside. If it doesn't snap right or it's a bit distorted, just shove it in place. It should be in center with the first line. The same for this part, and now we will just work our way down. So this one here in the middle of the fingers. This one here to this line. This bone here. The last one to the tip. Maybe a bit more centered. This one a bit more upwards. Good enough. Drag select. And exactly the same thing for the pointer. And here, I think the rotation is a bit off. Here on the item, you should build a, let's rotate it a bit back. And let's start here. I think the last one is not necessary for my finger. It will be a very limited thumb. And the bone of the thumb should be around here in the middle. Something around this. This is also centered. This a bit more in. Just like that. Okay. Oh, and the hand bone. Something like that. Okay. Oh, we can untoggle the volume snapping. And so the rig is basically done. And now we will work with the automatic rigging, and then we will touch up some little parts. So let's go back into the object mode. Let's select the mesh first and then the rig. Shift left click, and it's important that this marking, this frame is around the meta rig. Right click, parent, automatic weights. Now, let's drag it into the ARM folder. Now it should be unified. If we now select the rig, we can switch into the pose mode. And now it should be possible, if we take the rotate tool, for example, that we move our rigged arm around. Okay, let's test all the bones. I think it's better to change global to local, so it's aligned with the rotation of the bone. Now let's just try if we get some weird distortions or something. Okay, to snap it back to its original state, Alt R for rotation, Alt G would be for movement, and Alt S would be for resetting the scale. Let's work our way down. Okay, the rotation is a bit off, but let's just try it. Okay. Let's material preview. I mean, it looks alright, but we can, yeah, you see here the lower arm gets very thin, and we want volume down here, so we have to fix that. This part, okay. Alt R. Let's keep that in mind. And also, I don't like this weird rotation. Let's go into edit mode, item, and roll. Let's rotate it more towards the camera, like that. Now, compose mode, select it again. You see the X value is facing towards the camera. That's way better, just like the shoulder. So let's try just the hand bone. Okay. Get no weird distortions. It's just rolling with the hand. Perfect. Alt R. Now, let's try here the first one for the thumb. Okay, we get some slight distortions, but I think we can work with that. Okay, that's pretty okay. Drag select, Alt R to snap back. We live with that kind of distortion. I mean, it's getting really thin up here. Looks kind of weird. Maybe we have to fix that. But I think it's not that bad, to be honest. If you look it from a bit further away. Okay, let's try to make a fist. Hit A, select everything. Alt R, and let's make a fist. And now the pointer. Now let's lay a thumb top of it. If you're not sure about your fist, try to make a fist with your own hand and compare it. And the finger should close down. The thumb should close down the fist. Just like that. Okay. Let's bring the arm up. Basically, I try to get a test perspective onto my arm. I think the deforming of the hand is not that bad. I know it's really thinning out up here, but it's really not that bad. I mean, you have to imagine if we hold a gun or something, this finger is more relaxed. This would be also a bit more forward. Something like this. This would be closed a bit more tighter. So R. So this would be with a gun. And yeah, I can totally live with that. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. Select all, R. The only thing I noticed was this distortion of the lower arm. If we get all the way up here, this looks really weird. We have to fix that part. So let's bring it in a weird pose like this. Switch into the object mode. Select only the geometry, like that. not the rig, just the geometry, and hit edit. And now here, inside the object data properties, we have the list of all the bones. And we have here left shoulder, upper arm, so shoulder, upper arm, and forearm. So let's click here into nothing and select what the forearm has assigned. Okay. So basically we want the forearm to just have it's here assigned, but we don't want the middle part. We actually want the upper arm and the forearm to not have any weight painting in the middle. This is just for stretching. So let's select the upper arm. Okay. So let's start with the upper arm. To fix this weird distortion, we will just go into the face selection. Let's untoggle the X-ray vision. Alt left click, so it will wrap around, or you just shift left click all around all the faces, and while having the upper arm selected, hit remove. And because we still have the mirror modifier on, this weight painting will apply to the other side. If we now deselect this, so click into nothing and select again the upper arm, it's just this. Okay, just the shoulder. This is not enough, so let's bring this selected area back and assign. Click into nothing and let's check again. Okay, perfect. Now the upper arm bone is assigned to from the shoulder part down to here. And this is now gone. Perfect. Let's try the forearm. Select. Okay. Again, we have to deselect those parts, because through this part we get this weird stretching that's thinning out our forearm. Remove. Okay, let's check it. Forearm selected. Select. X-ray. So only the part down here is left, because the weight painting is fading out. But because we work with low poly, we can basically just use whole faces for weight painting. Untoggle the X-ray. Shift left click. Okay, this is selected and assign. Now click into nothing, select forearm, X-ray. Okay, the faces inside the hand are selected and this upper part here. Perfect. And the middle part is not selected by the upper arm or the forearm. It's basically an empty space between weight painted mesh that's just here for stretching. So we can test this very easily. Hit tab. Now it will spring back into the pose we left the armature in. And as you can see, so let's hide overlays. Now it's looking like a real muscle and the form is not thinning out anymore. We could basically do the same process for the fingers, but I have to say it's not that of an issue for me. So this was way more an issue, the thinning out. Now it looks way more realistic. And yeah, we get here, it looks very organic. Nice. Like the metric. Pose mode. We select this bone and let's hide the overlays. As you can see, this middle part is now only for stretching. Alt R. Nice. Pretty nice. Well, well, well. Now let's check the other side very quickly. So because the mirror modifier is on here on the arms, the assigned, the changed weight painting is applying to the other side as well, and we don't have to repeat the whole process for the other side, only for one side. That's pretty convenient. This thinning out of the arm would look very dumb and unprofessional. The thing out of the fingers, it's not that major, but that's a personal opinion. Slap, slap, slap. Okay. So let's bring back the overlay, and I would say let's give it a save. Basically, this setup here is ready to go for some first-person animations. Well, 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 I'm really, really proud of you if you made it this far in this tutorial. It's always hard to learn and try something new, and especially for beginner, there are a lot of informations at once. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Also, this character rig will be available for my on my website starcrafts.com as a free download. So if you want to play around with this. Also in the next video we will dive into, based on this project file, dive into first-person animation, how to set everything, the camera and stuff up inside Blender, animate the base animations for your character, for your first-person character, and then export it as an FBX file ready for your game project. And well, and check out my other videos and my devlog, and please consider subscribing for more. And yeah, I guess see you in the next one.